you know, after 9 years almost, it takes a long time to like recognize, you know, when you're in a hot cycle and then when it's slowing down.
Right, because your market tuition is just like school tuition. It's like you're gonna pay for 4 years to even get a degree, or 8 years, depending on what you're doing. Same thing with trading. This is gonna take some time.
I need to find my own little niche, you know?
Yeah.
Setups that work for me, where I kind of have my own rules on entries and exits.
I want to take you back. Like if for some reason you had to just completely start over, but you knew what you know today, how would you start over? Like how would you approach trading? Would you approach it the same way?
A lot of it was just experience, just losing over and over and over again, and finally realizing like what wasn't working and what was working, you know?
Welcome back everybody to Be the Trader. Today is a very special day because I brought my buddy JJ out to come share his story. He's been trading for 9 years, and so you're gonna want to hear this. So JJ, welcome to the show, my man.
Thanks, Alex. Fantastic to be here. Always wanted to say that.
Oh, love having you here. So if you can get everyone into the story of JJ, where would you start? Like how does it begin?
Well, I guess in regards to trading and investing, so I bought my first stocks back in 2013. So I got into Facebook. Lockheed Martin was the other one. I can't remember the other one. Philip Morris, maybe, the cigarette company. And then my first trading was, so there was a tip for this like small cap stock. I didn't realize it at the time, but it was like a Chinese pump and dump.
Yep.
I think the ticker was ATN or AXN or something. So I bought that. I remember the day too. I remember I was at work. We usually go to the gym at like lunchtime. So I was at the gym. I was like pacing around on my phone, just like waiting for it, because there's supposed to be news coming out on the stock. And I didn't realize like, you know, like it had made a huge run into that news. Like obviously you kind of know what's going to happen next. But so I was pacing around, like the news came out. I'm like, okay, the news came out. And then I'm watching it. I'm like waiting for it to go up. It goes like -5%, -10%, negative. I'm like sitting there like, what the hell's going on? -20, -25, negative. It was dumping, you know? And then I think I got out at like literally like -50%. So that was my first expedition into trading. And, you know, I think most people have a story like, oh, like I won like a shitload of money and then that like got me addicted. But for me, like I lost a bunch of money and then that made me think like, I want to be able to beat this game, you know?
Yep.
So that's how I got into it. Then I, you know, kind of same story you hear from a lot of people, joined the, you know, Tim Sykes room, chat rooms and stuff. And just tried to start learning how to trade, and proceeded to lose money for the next 3 years straight.
You know what's interesting about that is what you said there is like your first like real day trade experience was just a big loss at first. I was the same way. And I feel like I feel like it's almost like more of a blessing than the opposite. Like when you win right away and get hooked, because then you don't really know. Like you're just like, oh, this is easy. So you lost and you're thinking, I want to learn how to master this game. So you join a chat room. What would you say? Did you like how long? You said it took you 3 years of struggle to really find anything. During those 3 years, what was holding you back?
Really like I guess just like following other people's strategies. You know, I'd see like somebody make money trading this way, trading that way. And I just like keep on jumping from one strategy to the next, I think was what it was. And just trying to follow what other people are doing. And then it took me a while to realize like, I need to find my own little niche, you know? Setups that work for me, where I kind of have my own rules on entries and exits. So yeah, I'd say what was holding me back was just kind of jumping from one strategy to the next and just like following other people.
Do you think though, jumping from each strategy kind of helped you discover your own?
Yeah, that's a good point. Cause like, you don't know where to, you know, you can't figure that out on your own without kind of jumping into a bunch of different strategies. So yeah.
Did you take a little bit from all different types, or did you kind of create a strategy that's completely nothing like anything?
Yeah, so I think I took pieces from, you know, strategies that I saw were working, and then kind of took my own rules on like when I should get in, when I should get out. You know, kind of came up with my own criteria that worked for me.
How'd you do that?
A lot of it was just experience, just losing over and over and over again, and finally realizing like what wasn't working and what was working, you know?
Are you tracking everything even at the beginning?
At the beginning, I wasn't. So I started to put in a lot more work. I'd say like 2 years in was when I finally like realized, okay, like I can't, you know, I gotta like do some work in terms of like tracking, recapping, and stuff like that, you know?
Yep.
Because at the very beginning, I just like thought it was gonna be like easy money. Like,
yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Why track? Like,
Yeah.
it's gonna be easy.
Yeah. I had no idea like how hard it would be, you know?
How did you even continue to keep pushing forward, man? Because, you know, 3 years, you know, you're struggling. I know people are thinking right now in themselves, sitting down, watching TV, watching this on YouTube, and they're probably thinking like, oh man, I love trading. I really want to get into this. I could be successful in 1 year. So like, give a reality check of what it was like during those 3 years. Like, what are you gonna go through? Like, what did you go through?
I mean, yeah, just like constantly losing, going through accounts and just like not finding any consistency was really what it was. Just like over and over and over again. But it's like, I grew up playing a lot of sports, and it's like, I've always like hated losing. I think I hate losing more than I like winning, which is kind of like going back to like what got me into trading was like losing, but and not wanting to lose. But yeah, it was basically just years of just like losing and seeing what wasn't working.
And speaking of hating to lose, because that's something you got to deal with forever.
Yeah.
Because trading, you're going to lose.
Yeah.
So how do you deal with that?
So that's probably another reason why it like took me a long time, was because that's actually a really bad mindset for trading, to like hate losing, because you really got to come to like embrace it. That's just like part of it. You're going to lose a certain, amount of the time,
Yeah.
It just comes down to like, losing a little less than you win, or making sure that your winners are a lot bigger than your losers.
How did you overcome that for yourself then? Because since that was something you really hate, that was, as you mentioned, I just really hate losing. Mm-hmm. So much that you hate it more than what you prefer when you like to win, So that's interesting, because I'm the same way. So I'm very curious on how you overcame that, because I know you said that you just got to learn how to live with it, but how did you learn that?
So I think the tracking stuff helps. So like when you start to understand like how often a setup is supposed to work, then you come to terms with like, okay, well, it's just simply not going to work like this many times, And then the other part of the equation with being profitable is the risk versus reward. So the risk management is just making sure that you're not just like letting it run against you. So that even if you are winning like 80% of the time, if your losers are like 3 times bigger than your winners, then it's still not going to work,
Right, absolutely. So we're going to say you took 3 years. In that 3rd year, what was that really flipped for you, that really helped you progress like dramatically?
So I'd say the tracking, like actually knowing, because then it like when you're tracking, you're seeing like you've gone back through the data and through the charts and like seeing a setup working over and over again, and it, then like the conviction helps you too. And it also helps you eliminate, so that's another thing too, is just simply eliminating the trades that don't fit a certain criteria. I think a couple of people have said this, like, Lucas, Short Bear, and Lance talking about like categorizing your trades, like having very specific criteria of like, this is like X name setup. You have a name for it. The pattern, like where you're supposed to get in, where you're supposed to get out, like what it's doing if it's not working, what it should be doing if it is working, So like categorizing the trades, I think is like, I guess to answer your question, is like once I figured out how to really like categorize the setups into buckets, so that I know that like, okay, this isn't in the category of anything, so I shouldn't be trading it. It's like, because like I'd always have these trades where like I think I know what's going to happen next, but it doesn't fit in any kind of category. I just have some opinion,
So I love that you said it many times now, just tracking. Tracking's really helped you in your progress. And so many people probably are at the beginning of their trading career where, like you and I were, I didn't track in the first couple of years, because you just kind of like, this is going to be easy. This is going to be easy, right? So tracking is huge for you. Now I'm curious, when it comes to your trading style, what do you track that helps you for your style?
Well, so I save a lot of charts, particularly, so I like I'm gonna say like slower moving, but like I don't trade it when a stock is super volatile. Like, so say I don't like shorting when it's making a huge move up, or longing when it's making a huge move down. I like it when it's like consolidating a little bit and it's about to make a move, either a breakdown or a breakout, because I don't really like getting in when it's super like whipsawy and volatile. Some traders are really good at that. I like kind of anticipating like a trend break or a breakdown. Yeah.
So how do you make decisions based off that? Are you just looking at the chart, or are you doing any type of research? What are you doing?
I guess I have two strategies. Like I'll day trade, in which case I use a lot of like statistics, and then I have a swing trading strategy, which is more on like on the long side. And so that's purely that's technical, but then it's also fundamental. So I'll look into the SEC filings, usually looking for like an agenda. I like trading around catalysts, so like longing into news that might be coming out. Or on the short side, shorting news that was expected.
Okay. Do you have like a quick example of like what do you mean by, let's say, a fundamental trade that's mixed with technicals? Maybe something you've done recently. Just a quick example.
Yeah, I mean, there's one that I've traded multiple times in the last few months. It's this ticker ICU.
Okay.
So if anybody wants to pull up the daily chart, so that was a good one where. I was longing into a potential catalyst. So they had mentioned that they would be getting this certain approvable letter from the FDA. So I longed into the gap up. And then, so the thing is, like, I knew that would also be a sell the news scenario. So it was also a scenario where I was able to long it into the catalyst, but then short it after the catalyst. The funny thing is I'm long again now because they're expecting another catalyst, and I'll probably short it once it comes out. So
and you find this out through the filings.
Yeah.
That's insane, because I know a lot of people are very intimidated by filings. So how'd you learn the whole, like, is that something you always love? Like, you like reading, like going into things like that? Like, how'd you pick that skill up?
Yeah, so I got into that probably, or I don't know, 2 years into trading, following guys like Eric Wood on Twitter. Michael Good is actually like the OG of SEC filing, so I learned a lot from him. But yeah, it was just like looking for another edge, you know? Because especially I trade a lot of small caps, and it's always like kind of the same agenda. You know, these companies are strapped for cash. They have no money, so they have to pump up their stock to sell shares, and they usually do that through like fluffy PRs. It's like the same kind of pattern, you know.
Yep.
And so I'd short those a lot, but then I started getting in the long side when I started to think like, you know, well, what about, you know, how they build it into like in anticipation of a catalyst, or what they do to like get the stock pumped up so they can eventually raise, you know. So I tried to like reverse engineer it.
Hey, we wouldn't be able to do these face-to-face interviews if it wasn't for our sponsor, Cobra Trading. So if you could just give them a few seconds of your time, we'd really appreciate it. Cobra Trading is the go-to broker for day traders and short sellers. And I'm not the only one saying this. In fact, Benzinga awarded Cobra Trading as the go-to broker for short selling. They have a heavy focus on direct market access order routing, so you have the fastest execution. They have some of the best locate prices and availability. They also have amazing customer service. I've experienced many different brokers, and it's why I use them every single day and why I'm proud to have them as our sponsor. Sign up now by clicking the Be the Trader referral link below and earn 1 free month of software with Cobra and 25% off all commissions. Now let's get back to the show. Dang, that's insane. Is there any tips on like if someone wants to start doing that, start to at least look in the SEC filings that you would give to start learning how to read those?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, there's not like a lot of content out there on like learning SEC filings. But what's one of the reasons why I'm developing an application right now, it's called AskEdgar. So it's basically for those of you out there that use like BAMSec, it's for like researching SEC filings. But now with like the advent of like AI, we have like AI assistants, so you can like ask it questions and ask it like, even if something's super complex, and you'd be like, can you just explain this to me in like the simplest terms, you know, complex agreement or like some biotech news or stuff like that. So I think that'll make it a lot easier to understand these things. That's awesome. That's awesome. And for those who aren't aware, AskEdgar is a company you just started. Yeah. Right? And by now, by the time they watch this, it'll probably be already, people can probably sign up, right? Right. Yep. And it's just AI, like you said, mixed with SEC filings, and way more in depth than that, though. Like, you know, that answers so many questions. So definitely check it out. We'll have links below. But I'm very curious, man. Like, it sounds like just when you were explaining your story, you know, 3 years of struggle, then you kind of found what worked. Was it immediately like off to the races after those 3 years? You found what works and you're making tons of money. Like, can you explain what that experience is like? Absolutely not. No. Okay, cool. No, it was like, you know, you can do, so like when my first profitable year was like, you know, decent. And then I started doing really well going into 2019 and 2020. I mean, I think a lot of people did really well in 2020, 2021. And then I didn't make any money in 2022. I was red. Yeah, not like huge, but yeah, it was just like the setups weren't really working, you know. The longs weren't really working that well. I took some big, huge losses, which caused it. But yeah, I mean, it's you got to be like on top of your game at all times, you know, because like I think people think that, you know, like I became profitable and then it's just like you just ride off into the sunset. Like that's not how it works. Like, you know, it's still like a struggle. Like every single day, every month, you know, people are struggling, you know.
I love that you brought that up, man, because it just shows the reality that this is not something that you learn once and you're good forever. Like you always got to be on top of your game, like you said. So is there things you do, is there things that you did in 2022 that promoted it to be red? You know what I'm saying? Like things that you probably stepped away from what was working, or did you do everything perfectly and it just happened to work out that way?
No, yeah. So I mean, I guess part of it were like some setups weren't working, but then because like things weren't working and I wasn't doing well, it kind of snowballed almost, where I was like trying to look for like different approaches, and again going back to like just jumping into like different strategies, you know. And yeah, it just kind of like snowballed. It's kind of like I kind of compare it to like when you're trying to fix a golf swing and then like you try to make a change and it makes it worse, you know. So then you try to change it again and it gets worse, you know. So yeah, it's kind of like that.
So what are you doing now, like in 2023, and now we're in 2024? Like, what are you doing different to have better years?
Yeah, so on the day trading side, where I use a lot of stats, I really tightened up on the statistics that I use and like the criteria. It's a lot more stringent criteria, and I've eliminated a lot of trades that were kind of like iffy. So that helped a lot. And then on the long side, I just did a better job of. So like one way I trade like swing longs is I'll wait for like these hot cycles. So for those of you that trade small caps, it kind of comes in like hot cycles and cold cycles. And a lot of what I do is like the cycle would heat up and you get long and you make like great money, but then you like keep on trying to do it even after the cycle's dying down, and you also like bag hold. So just eliminating some like recognizing when the cycle's ending to just like kind of, you know, trim your positions and like not be as aggressive anymore. So yeah.
That's interesting because the cycles, could you explain what those cycles look like real quick for those who aren't aware?
Yeah, it'd be like, so like in 2023, you had like the AI cycle, which I believe that was like February. We had like CXAI and GFAI and AI. All the AI stocks. And then April was basically like best months, I think, in my entire career was with like all these China low floats were going crazy on the back of like Top, I think, made like some crazy like 5,000% move or something. Because that's what happens, like when you get these massive movers like AI or like Top, it just spurs all these other, you know.
It does.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember what other, they don't happen very often. You get these super hot cycles maybe like 3 or 4 times a year at the very most. You know,
sometimes they're short-lived,
and they're short. Yeah, like sometimes you get like COVID that lasts for like almost an entire year. You know, but yeah, I mean they're really short-lived, so that's why you got to like capitalize when they come around. But then when they slow down, you just got to like.
How do you know though? Like, what are you thinking? Like, what's causing your brain to go, we're in a cycle now, versus I'll ask that first. Yeah. What causes your brain to say like, okay, we're in a cycle, time to hit it?
Yeah. I mean, that's just kind of experience, I guess, just from seeing them. And that's why it took like, you know, after 9 years almost, it takes a long time to like recognize, you know, when you're in a hot cycle and then when it's slowing down. Yeah.
What about now going the opposite? When it is slowing down, are you like, do you have rules to yourself where it's like, you know what, when the cycle starts, I will be hot on it until I take a loss and then I immediately take off? Like, how do you play the cycle itself? Like in terms of when to know to slow down, and do you have rules in place to help you slow down and so forth?
It's a good question, because that's actually something I was just like thinking about, like, because I have very strict rules when it comes to day trading, but like in swing trading, when it's a lot more discretionary based on like, you know, kind of subjective around this, like how hot the cycle is. I don't really have as strict rules as I should, you know, so, but yeah, it's definitely something I'm trying to implement this year for sure.
How are you thinking about developing those rules? Because I'm just curious how you're going to go about, I know you don't have them yet, but how are you thinking through like how to create them?
I mean, a lot of it has to do with generally with the more common cycles, like not like the once in a lifetime ones like COVID or like Bitcoin. I think crypto was kind of like a once in a lifetime cycle back in 2017. For the
like
shorter
marijuana, like how it comes out in like those quick cycles.
Yeah, like the quicker ones, they're more like based around like one like leading ticker that's like leading the way. And then when that one kind of like the trend breaks and the volume dies off, that's kind of like gives you a stronger indication. Because like we were talking about, there isn't really an objective like it's over now or like, you know?
Yeah.
But that chart like of the leading the sector leader can kind of give you an indication that's like slowing down, and using that as kind of like a guide that it's dying down, and say, okay, well now I'm sizing down to whatever, you know, a third, or I'm not initiating any new longs unless it makes another leg up or something like that.
That's a good point. And I think it's something to be said that it can also like the leader could shift, right? Would you say like the leader can like one day it's, let's just say X company in the marijuana sector, and then the next day it shifts to a new leader, but it's still in the same sector, right? That can also happen.
Yeah, exactly. I think with marijuana is a good one. I feel like, that happened with like, there was like MBev or IGC was like the leader, and then all of a sudden MBev like comes up out of nowhere, and then that's the leader, you know? So yeah.
So, and that's what it means. That's what you mean by screen time. Like you don't know that until you start to witness this over and over. And I love that you shared that, like, you know, it's taken you years to understand like these cycles keep happening. And now you can start to adjust and start to make money. And that is the reason I think it's so valuable that you said that, is because I believe trading takes a long time to learn. And it's a hard career. And so it's so important to survive. So that way you can experience all of these different cycles. And that way in the future you can actually take advantage of them. So thanks for sharing that, man. What would you say is your number one biggest struggle right now that you want to overcome and get to help you step your game to a whole new level?
I think you brought it up, was having more definitive like rules on the more discretionary part of my trading, is I don't really have very stringent rules on that part of my trading strategy. It's
interesting you say that, because like you mix stringent rules with discretionary. Like, can you ever make discretionary so stringent? Like, is it even possible? Or I'm just curious.
Yeah, it is. You need to find some sort of objectivity, kind of like what I was talking about like kind of following the leader and just determining like if that chart's cracking, you know. But again, it's always going to be subjective, you know. You can't, you know, ever be 100% objective on that stuff. But there are ways to like implement more like stringent rules for sure.
So now I want to take you back. Like if for some reason you had to just completely start over, right? But you knew what you know today, how would you start over? Like, how would you approach trading? Would you approach it the same way, or would you approach it a completely different way?
Well, I mean, there's two main things that I would do from the beginning if I was going to start over, which is like, one, the categorization of setups. You know, I do that a lot earlier. I'd be a lot more specific. And then also just like trading smaller size is just like longevity.
Yes,
you know, because that's what it is. As long as you can like last through a certain, you know, period of years, then you're gonna get it, you know. But you don't want to go broke before you start getting it.
Yeah, 100%. You don't want to like figure it out on your last dollar, because then you're like, well, shit, now I gotta wait.
Yeah.
So, what piece of advice would you give a new trader who is gonna start this journey?
I'd say just like, because like when I got started, I thought I was just gonna be a millionaire in like a year, you know. So like you're trying to bet the size that you need to bet to like get to that point. The thing is, you can get there through smaller size, but the thing is, you're paying this market tuition. You have to accept that you're gonna be losing money for a period of time. So you might as well just try to lose as little as possible, you know. So you can get to the point where you've seen these market cycles and you track setups and you know what works for you. So yeah, just trading small enough so that the market tuition you are paying is low, you know?
Yep, 100%.
Yeah, and then just like categorizing what works for you and just staying away from what doesn't.
Right, because your market tuition is just like school tuition. It's like you're going to pay for 4 years to even get a degree, or 8 years, depending on what you're doing. Same thing with trading. This is going to take some time. But you can determine that tuition. It can even be free. Like if you want to do paper trading for 4 years, which hats off to you if you can pull that off. And then you're fighting a whole different world at that point in terms of emotions in your head and wanting to do the real thing. What is your biggest strength, man? Like in your own trading, what really helps you become a good trader? for yourself?
I'd probably say, so I trade the same tickers over and over again because in small cap land, you gotta have the same usual suspects that are like moving. So like I have a good memory when like, if say like this China sector gets hot, like I know which ticker is going to move for that, and like with AI and stuff like that.
Yep.
So I'm very familiar with like the small cap space now. Like I'm very familiar with like the usual suspects and like the sectors and like what stocks move when it heats up. Yeah, I'd say that.
Are you very familiar with it just because you see it once, or do you do something in your routine every day that helps you be familiar with these type of moves? I'm just curious.
Well, I always research like any stocks that have like a multi-day mover, or they're like multi-day movers. I'll always look into them. Like I'll see, what exactly they do. If they're biotech, like where are they at in like trials, like catalysts, like who they sell to when they raise money, like who, like when they pump, how they pump, stuff like that. I had this whole spreadsheet actually where I like track all the companies and like have all these like notes about them, And also just like how they move too, not just the fundamentals. Like if this stock gaps, usually it's a pain in the ass, so I'm not going to trade it. Or when this stock gaps, it usually fades off,
Yeah, I do know. And it's interesting you said before, by the way, before I start to wrap this up, I wanted to mention this with you because you mentioned this a couple of times now, like what to avoid or what not to trade. Can you talk about how important that is to help you stay consistent and be profitable?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like the key. I feel like after maybe 2 years, I already had setups that like worked, and what was keeping me from being profitable was just trading the ones that like didn't. So it's like you don't even really have to add any new plays to your playbook. You can just like eliminate the crap that doesn't work for you, and then that's like the key, At least for me, it's just eliminating stuff that wasn't working.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, look, JJ, I want to give people the opportunity to learn more about you. So if they want to reach out or anything, find out more about you, how can they do that?
Yeah, so Twitter, I'm not super active, but that's at JMT415, and then AskEdgar.io is the SEC filing site I was telling you about.
And real quickly, could you give us a brief overview of what AskEdgar is?
Yeah, it's just, so it's a site to basically research SEC filings, but with the help of AI. Simple as that. Think of it as sec.gov or like bamsec.com, but with like a little AI assistant chatbot.
So definitely check that out. And again, JJ, thanks for being here, brother.
Thanks, man.
Absolutely.